All right. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is having an amazing morning so far. Did you enjoy your first session? Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for having me again, Samaritan. I really appreciate it. It's really a privilege to be among other clinicians, other experts in the field. And so I am extremely humbled to be a part of this, a moment with you to learn and to grow. However, with this presentation, I know some of us might be clinicians, right? Most of us are directors of a nonprofit organization or working with a mental health counseling center as clinicians or case managers. But I want to have a dialogue, right? I want to engage. And of course, at the end of the session, we want to leave for 10 to 15 minutes for dialogue and conversation and questions. But I want you to take off your clinician hat, right? I want you to take off your hat as a clinician. And I want us to sit at the other seat, on the other side, on the couch as a client. So we're going to take this journey together as we talk about cultivating courage and the reflection of adverse childhood experiences on self-esteem and the adult brain function. All righty. So, how many of you have heard of the ACE? Yeah, almost everyone in this, the ACE, the adverse childhood experiences. And so in 1998, Felitti and his cohorts, through his study, he revealed that children who go through traumatic events, such as sexual abuse, mental, physical, any type of upsetting event, that they are more prone to, susceptible or more vulnerable to mental health and substance abuse issues as they get older as adults. Right? And so I find this very interesting. It's in the CDC. And I'm assuming that most of you are using the ACE measurement with your clients in particular to kind of sift through whether or not they've experienced any type of adverse childhood experiences. As a clinician, I tend to use this because, of course, I consider myself as a trauma expert, and I absolutely love, I'm growing. There's so much in the field to learn. However, because I'm dealing with these clients, I tend to use that very heavily, the ACE, to kind of help me with my treatment plan and things of that nature, and to help me set up as far as where we would want to focus. The ACE, you guys have the measurement before you? Do you guys have a copy of this? Yeah? Okay. So this ACE, Adverse Childhood Experience measurement, it's a survey created to measure the impact of childhood trauma, right? They have different factors and different measures that they're looking at. According to the study, people with high ACE scores, they tend to be more vulnerable to mental health and substance abuse issues, right? And so health issues like anxiety and depression, because we have like a very overactive nervous system, right? Especially if you're experience prolonged stress constantly. It kind of sets your nervous system to be very hypervigilant. But so my experience as a child, there was violence in the home. I was sexually molested by next door neighbors, physical abuse. I dealt with a lot of verbal kind of abuse in my home. And I ended up being I had to go into my foster care in a residential treatment center from the ages to 12 to 17. And so in the treatment center, not a lot of nurture, especially when you have 12, 13 girls you gotta take care of. Nobody has time to focus on 13 girls, right? Especially with behavioral issues. And so that's what I've experienced. And from that, I was diagnosed with, of course, back then, schizophrenia. They had me on psychotropic medication like Millerol, Ritalin for ADHD, all these things to try to sedate me or my behaviors, but really not dealing with the core issue that I was experiencing. But it was until I had an encounter with the love of Jesus Christ, right? This is faith we're talking about, right? With faith and integrating wellness. This one lady by the name of Miss Fox, she was one of those protective factors, as we call them, the ACE, the individual that was very consistent and demonstrated the love of God in such a way that was mind-blowing. She didn't preach and said, you need to go give your life to Christ or else you go to hell. It was her life as a guidance counselor in the foster care system that transformed my life. And when I heard the gospel of Jesus Christ, how he died, he loved me, I was through. I was like, I want what she has. I don't know what it is, but I want it, right? So I say this to say, do not discount your position as counselors, because you are a city on the hill that cannot be hidden. God will use you, and he is using some of you, or all of you. He is using you as his instrument, his hands and his feet, to make an impact to that one person, that one case that seems like, okay, there's no possible way I could get through, right? But as an example of my story and a lot of stories here that are untold or never heard, that you are there for a reason. The love of Jesus Christ will make an impact through you. So don't get discouraged about not seeing progress. Some of you may not, oh my gosh, how in the world am I going to see changes? I don't see anything. But you are there for a reason. That sphere of influence, and God can use you. And I want to say that despite everything that we've experienced, there is no trauma that God cannot heal. I don't care about statistics is real helpful with scholars and research. They help us to figure out plans and preventative plans and services, but there is no trauma that God cannot heal, right? And so I am proof of this, like many of you. All right. So there are ACEs, or upsetting things that are very insidious. We understand the big T traumas, the sexual abuse, those other things that are very outright. But there are things in the family dysfunction that happens that are not really present, right? Like unpredictability. Right? Not knowing when you're probably going to get the next meal, or when dad or mom is going to be nice. Sometimes like the emotional unmet needs. I think now in research, they are starting to find out that there are actually detrimental effects of not having certain emotional needs met, right? Unpredictability, denying of allowing you to express your emotions, rigidness, right? Mistreatment, being neglectful, all these things can have an impact on those formative years as we are growing up as a child. All right. Attachment and internal working models. How many of you have heard of attachment styles and internal working models? Yeah? Okay. Good. Awesome. So my question to you is, who made you feel special, wanted, and valued growing up? We have the deep need to be desired, to be wanted, to be seen, and for connection. Okay, so in the birth of this idea of attachment in 1949, John Bowlby, he was a psychologist who did his first scientific study on human love, right? About attachment and how the relationship, that relationship between the mother of the child, or the parent and the child, sets up this framework for survival in adulthood and throughout life. Right? So he said that the infant's emotional and social development is profoundly shaped by this relationship. It's the prototype that sets our expectations of what to experience, or how we see the lens in which we see ourselves and how we engage others, and what we view about relationships. right? And so he continues to say that we are biologically wired to form attachments as a mechanism that serves as a survival strategy. And Mary Ainsworth was another individual, a psychologist, developmental psychologist, who came alongside of him, and she added to his study in regards to attachment theories. And she identified and categorized at least 4 attachment patterns: secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. All right, so as we've seen, secure attachment, this idea, right, of secure attachment is as a result of the responsive parent, right? The parent that is sensitive, readily available. See how that mother was readily available? Oh my gosh, come on, kind of thing. And how the child just readily kind of just reunified with the mother. And so this is a result of parents kind of being attentive, helping to co-regulate the child's emotions. Helping them communicate, soothing them with kind words, it's okay, kind of thing, and kind of distracting them with play. And me kind of studying this, I noticed this I was in a nail salon, and I noticed this really unique dyad between the mother and the child, and how she was extremely attentive. He was there sitting on the floor, wanted to be explorative, but and at times he would come back and he would be frustrated and he would be crying because he doesn't want to be there. But the mother was just cool and patient, right? She was just very attentive. And I was like, that is so beautiful, right? But it's normal. It's supposed to kind of happen like that, I think. But that's what it kind of looks like. And so as a result of this emotional connection that the parent and the child has, it leads to the child to be receptive, right? More open. They understand that their support system, their parent, is a safety net, right? It can be trusted. I can rely on them. They feel safe. And so what this does, it develops independence in the child and be kind of okay with exploring the world, because I know that I have a parent that I can go back to, right? And so this actually helps the child learn how to control their emotions and to regulate the nuances of managing this world that's around them that's new. So it teaches them to trust others and have a positive outlook on relationships, right? Even on themselves, right? It's okay to kind of be emotionally intimate with people. It's not a scary thing for them. And so this secure adult, as a result of the responsive parent, this receptive child, this adult is secured. They have easy access to early memories, childhood memories. I have clients who have had extensive trauma that don't remember at all their childhood or some of the things that they experienced, or just at all. That memory is just blocked. It's not even there, They don't want to access that. It's not easily readily available. But typically these secure adults, they have a positive outlook in romantic relationships, with friendships, and they are comfortable with allowing the other person to see them, right? They're comfortable with emotional vulnerability, and they're okay with people coming close to them. All right, so this insecure attachment, the ambivalent parent, which caregivers in this case they're not consistent in how they are interacting with their child, right? They're inconsistent. They're loving at times, and at times they're not. They're meeting needs at times, and at times they're not. It's just kind of very unpredictable. And so this is a result of maybe this parent, their needs not being met as a child, right? We tend to transpose our parenting and what we've experienced, and we tend to parent how we were parented. And so this kind of could lead the parent to prioritize their needs over their children. So this results into the confused child. When the caregivers are inconsistent, the child becomes confused, right? They may feel very insecure about the relationship. They feel less confident about exploring the world, right? They might see, they might behave in ways that are maybe frustrating to the parent just as a way to get attention. Like any type of attention is good attention as long as you are giving me attention, even if it's negative, right? I'm gonna behave bad or do something, but I know you're gonna give me attention, even though you yell at me. It's some type of attention because I don't get it. So whatever attention I get, that's okay. It might look like clinginess, temper tantrums, and these behaviors can continue even in even in adulthood. So now you have the anxious, preoccupied adult. And these are adults who are very clingy. They're nervous about romantic relationships. They'll do everything to kind of keep that relationship, even if it's toxic and it's not good. But you love me, you show me some type of attention. So I'm gonna do whatever it takes for you to love me and see me. And because of their childhood experience, the fear of abandonment and rejection drives this behavior as they seek reassurance, even in friendships or even in their partners. All right, so the insecure attachment, another one is avoided, dismissive. And this is a result of the rejecting parent, right? These caregivers are rejected, they're dismissive about the needs of their child. They might need more guidance on how to show warmth, how to be nurturing, because this is not something that they've experienced as a child. And so if you have a client, they might need more. This was my attachment style. Avoided, dismissive. So sometimes relationships and emotional intimacy is like, I don't want to go there with you, because it just doesn't feel safe. Like, and sometimes some people call it cringy. Like that feels like, right? Don't touch me, like I don't, kind of thing. So when rejecting caregivers fail to understand their child's need, they may misinterpret their signals, leading to a range of negative emotions, anger, rage, right? In some worst case scenarios. But they're frustrated because I don't know what to do with this, right? I don't know what to do with this. Their window of tolerance is probably like very short when it comes to nurture. So they might, kind of respond with apathy, annoyance, right? And in most severe cases, anger. And this child goes into a place where they're defensive, right? They might not be very genuine or open about their own needs. Right? They don't know about what they need or feel very uncomfortable about the idea of nurture. I know I need some nurture from you, but I'm going to act like I don't need it. I don't, right? I'm going to dismiss you and avoid you. So they have learned to kind of equate this need of nurture and connection with shame and embarrassment. I feel shameful that I actually need you. I feel embarrassed that I need you, right? Kind of thing. But they have learned to be kind of in a survival mode like that. They've learned to shut those emotions down to cope. And so the secure attached child, right, explores their environment, but this child kind of avoids their caregiver altogether and keep them from coming close. So for an example, if this was an insecure child, the video that we've seen, if the mother would try to go ahead and console the child will probably be like, I don't need you, forget it. I've been here on my own all these years, kind of thing. They're confused. I'm not gonna try to, be open to that again. I'm gonna avoid that, kind of shut it down. And so this leads into the avoided dismissive adult, where they struggle with intimacy, their lack of affection in childhood, and they might prioritize independence, goals, education, degrees. That's where they feel comfortable at, right? But despite their desire to love, they struggle with this emotional vulnerability because they learn to hide their affection and avoid trusting others. All right. I want to make sure I get through everything really quick. So the frightening parent. So as we've seen, the frightening parent is hostile. I don't know if you've heard of Michelle Blair. Have you guys ever heard of that? Okay, y'all need to look it up. It's real strange. Michelle Blair is a parent who brutally tortured and murdered 2 of her children, and then stored their bodies in a freezer. It's a real story. You check it on YouTube, and they show the case. And for over 2 years, while she and her remaining kids continued, there were 2 more that continued to live with her, and they knew about this. Imagine how frightening, that is. There's a rising trend now. I don't know if you've noticed that parents are killing their children. Okay. But maybe it's been, it's negative, but I mean, it's sad, but it's like, maybe because I watch those types of things, it keeps coming on my feed. Maybe that's why it's coming up like that. But this is an example of a frightened parent, right? She tortured and killed both of her oldest sons because she thought the oldest daughter was sexually abusing the younger kid. And so she kind of believed in her mind that was happening. And so she tortured out of her own trauma. And she said, definitely, I will do it again. I will do it again. Because of her own stuff, she wasn't believed by her own mother. And so she felt like, and let me deal with it and be the rescuer for my younger son. It's just really sad, right? And so this is an example of what a frightening parent, and also if you've heard the story of Gabriel Hernandez, right? That stuff. He was tortured for months by the mother and the boy and the mother's boyfriend. And so these are examples of that. In worst case scenarios, they end up in death. But that's how important our role and our job is. But this leads to the chaotic child, right? This child doesn't have anywhere as a safety net, no security at all. Where do they run to, right? And so sometimes they are disassociative. They're here, but they're not there, kind of thing. They feel disconnected from who they are and the world around them. And this can kind of lead to this disorganized adult where they're hard on themselves or unable to manage tasks and be organized and things of that nature. I am trying to go really quick because I only have I have 11:43 and I want to make sure I get all this information. Internal working models. How many of you heard the internal working models? Right? Internal working models. So Bowlby, he states that the child's early experiences combine to create a certain way of seeing the world and its people. And this way of seeing the world could be seen as a filter to which they view their environment, right? And this is called the internal working model, right? It's intricately woven with the memories and expectations they form in their early formative years. And so this shows the importance of providing nurturing and positive experiences during this critical period. And so because, as I said earlier, it is the prototype and the foundation in which the child kind of sets up this expectation of who they are and how they relate to the world. So if a child has an insecure attachment to their caregiver, they may see others as unreliable. And so this internal model kind of focuses on three things: how you see others as trustworthy, how you see yourself as valuable, and how you see yourself as you interact socially with others. And as we talked about earlier, the same thing, the internal working models are the mental representation. It's the template, it's the roadmap individuals develop based on their formative years. And it shapes the individual's, again, expectations, right, about relationships and influence how we see ourselves and others. So if the parent-child relationship, if it's like consistent, if it's predictable, right, everyday needs are met, there's harmony going on, it sets up these expectations in the psyche for a safe, predictable, and manageable world, right? And it helps to set up our nervous system to be less reactive to threats. So when a parent or caregiver consistently meets the child, the attachment needs of the child, it creates these mental representations, this internal framework that I matter. I am loved. I am worthy of love. I am important. I'm unique. I'm deserving of love. And so when these positive internal working models are going, it gives us the foundation and the confidence to face anything, right? We can do anything and builds resilience, right? So this is a significant milestone in the formation of the sense of self. However, if a child is placed in these dilemmas where the child's most desired comfort is the one causing terror, it sets up the framework within a child that the caregiver is unworthy, untrustworthy, and unreliable, right? So this child kind of develops this internal working model that I am not worthy of love, that I am a bad person, right? That I'm a disappointment, I'm a failure. That's what it kind of sets up within the subconscious. We have explicit and implicit memory. I would try to get into that. I only have a few minutes. Oh, how many of you heard of Dr. Gabor Mate? This book is really good. I recommend clinicians. How many have this book? It's really good. I definitely recommend you getting it. It's extremely lengthy, but it's a lot. It's really good information. He says children must feel the invitation to exist in our presence exactly the way they are. The parent's primary task beyond providing for their survival needs is to emanate a simple message to the child in word, deed, and energetic presence that they are exactly precisely the one they need, love, and welcome. Oh, that's deep. And want. The child doesn't have to do anything or be anything to win that love. This abiding embrace can't be earned nor revoked. Right? So we understand that trauma in the brain, there are 3 areas. I'm pretty sure there's other areas of the brain that's affected, but there are 3 areas in the brain that increases mental illness, that's impacted by trauma, that increases susceptibility to mental illness and future diseases. So the 3 areas impacted is the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the prefrontal cortex. Of course, we understand that the amygdala is the seat of our emotions, right? It's almost like the 24/7 watch hour, kind of watchdog, and it's constantly scanning the environment for threats, even in our sleep. And so if a situation is perceived as dangerous, the amygdala generates the flight or fight response, and we begin to avoid similar situations in the future. So if we feel safe and engaging, interacting and bonding in a relationship, we won't run away from it, right? Even when we sense a threat, there's a foundation there of security and healthiness. But we do so because we feel trusting enough to regulate our emotions. The hippocampus is above the amygdala in the back near our ears, where the amygdala is the seat of our emotions. The hippocampus is the seat of our memory. So around 2.5 years of age, the hippocampus begins to translate experiences into the implicit memory, and it begins to kind of record our experiences. And it's linked to higher thinking. So explicit memory is processed consciously and remembered in the cortex, the thinking brain. With explicit processing, the child begins to remember experiences, and they consciously learn to approach or avoid certain people and situations. So the prefrontal cortex controls the decision. I call it the executive of the brain, right? Helps us to think rationally. But it's in control of emotional regulation, impulse, and chronic persistent stress overactivates it. And that's why I see a lot of clients who've had severe trauma. They are less tolerable for things. Their window of tolerance is like this, with increased fear and anxiety. Alrighty. All right, so prolonged cortisol. I don't know if you've heard of cortisol, but if there's a constant release, cortisol is an essential hormone that affects almost every organ and tissue in our body, right? You know how when you get into a fight, hopefully, I don't know. You know how when you get into a fight, like you don't feel the pain until afterwards? Okay, I have experience. But when you're in it, like you're in the fight, you don't feel nothing. You're getting these hard blows. The cortisol is kicking in, right? To help kind of numb that, calm, to regulate your body. So that's what happens. However, if that is consistently being released in the body because of prolonged stress, it begins to break down the immune system, kind of leaving it vulnerable to like diseases and stuff like that. So it might be helpful in a real situation, but when it's constantly being released like that, it can be detrimental. And so research has also suggested that literally trauma changes the dynamic structure of the brain. So when there's consistent maltreatment, it changes the typical path or direction of the brain growth and development, and it deviates from this path, which impacts the network of connections and circuits in the brain that helps us regulate our emotions, like managing how we feel in response to different situations. So it kind of changes the structure a little bit. And hypothalamus is another area of the brain that helps to regulate our emotions and stress response. Alrighty. And so a lot of times too, people with trauma, persistent, they tend to have memory loss. There's certain memories that they don't remember, certain things they don't remember. And so they might have difficulty with memory call and retention, being able to remember stuff and keep it. Alrighty. I want to make sure I'm in timing. So epigenetic maturation, right? How many of you have heard about epigenetics, right? Okay, epigenetics, how it changes the gene structure and stuff like that, and how it's influenced by our environment, it's influenced by our interactions and things of that nature. So it literally changes the patterns, and it can influence the development of our neural cortex, which is associated with higher functioning, and also can kind of influence the framework. There's studies now kind of looking into epigenetics and all that stuff and how it influences cognitive thinking and all that stuff. So it's really interesting. If you are interested in like researching that, I recommend you looking into that a little bit more. It's pretty, I just put that in there because I was interested in maybe. All right, so how many of you heard of neuroplasticity? Yes, good news, despite of all the trauma, all that stuff, our brain is like plastic, right? It can grow new neurons. We can create new synaptic connections between neurons, right? And we can change our brains to become more and more fluid, more flexible, more open to new ways of living, right? New choices, right? You don't have to remain stuck in a pattern. But giving the correct input, our brain rewires to create new neural pathways, right? That allows us to relate in healthier, more resilient ways. And this happens through explicit memory, what we remember, and which can be retrieved in our conscious awareness. Right? So while any experience causes neurons in our brains to fire. Repeated experiences causes neurons to fire repeatedly. Neurons that fire together wire together, thus strengthening neural connections. Implicit memory is information that we remember unconsciously and effortlessly, like brushing your teeth. You don't have to remember to brush your teeth, right? It's right there. But the explicit memory is information that we have to consciously work to remember, maybe like your to-do list or something like that. But so the more intense the emotional charge, the more neurons will fire in our brains, and the more likely we are to register the experience in our explicit memories, right? Okay, what does cultivating courage looks like? What do you think what cultivating courage looks like? Really quick.
Anything Brene Brown says.
What'd you say? I missed that.
Anything that Brene Brown says.
Yeah, oh, she's good, right? Like I like her. I love her kind of just how she translate this vulnerability, and I just love it. Do you have the Atlas book, the Atlas of the Heart? Yeah, but you definitely would. I love how she defines the emotions and stuff like that. I was just like, what? I didn't even know that was an emotion. But yeah, it's really good. What else? Saved? That's good. I like that. When I heard safety, I hear emotional safety, too. Safety, physical safety. That builds courage. You know, I have two sisters over there. They helped build courage, the connection, their consistency, right? Helps me to build courage to do things that I normally probably wouldn't do if I wasn't in a safe space, right? Affirmations, yes. What else? Perseverance. Absolutely. Awesome. All right. Reclaiming your life by grieving your loss and practicing forgiveness, right? To reclaim our lives, we must first grieve the loss of our expectations. Ooh, right? And beliefs about the world, ourselves, and other people. Grieving means allowing oneself to feel the sadness or disappointment associated with the loss for a brief time and then letting the sadness go, right? Grieving does not mean wallowing in sadness or ruminating about the past event. And so when we recognize, okay, my expectations about my parents always being there, right? When we allow ourselves to feel that and just kind of go through that process, it helps us to recognize that we cannot control the world, right? Can't control what people have done to us or our expectations of other people. It helps us to stop expecting life to be the same by blocking useless denial. So when we grieve our loss, it helps us to grow. It kind of upstate like the computer, our brain, by allowing the loss to be fully acknowledged. So grief work clears out old ways of thinking and allows us to be more open to what's happening now. So the question is, what part of myself or my belief about the world did this past injury damage? Right? What did it damage? We talked about expectations, these internal frameworks that were developed, right? What is it that I need to grieve? What expectation? Is it the expectation for a parent to be loving and caring? Is it a belief that a spouse or partner should be faithful? Is it a belief that others will work as hard as yourself, that people should be straightforward or honest, or a belief that other people will treat you with respect, right? Or a belief that others will play fair, or others will be kind and considerate, right? Here's this one. This is the one that got me too. A belief that a parent, spouse, or family member would not purposefully attempt to harm you, right? So these are some of the expectations that we may need to grieve and cultivate courage so that we can move forward. Another thing is reframing the subconscious mind. We learned that imagery and emotions is the language of the subconscious mind. It's where our core wounds and core beliefs about ourselves live. In the subconscious, not in our conscious. It's in the subconscious where our memory is. Memory and language together. So it contains all this stored information about everything that we have ever experienced. And so cognitive reframing means identifying and challenging these thought patterns that fuel our overanalyzing relationship situations, right? And low self-esteem. So this can be a powerful tool to kind of challenge the way we personally, interpret friendly relationship situations, because sometimes we can catastrophize about things. Like if your friend didn't text you, or your husband or wife didn't text you, I don't know. Some people go through that, like, oh my God, what's going on? They reject me, what's happening? Or they did that, we tend to kind of default to those types of things. But we can't just affirm our way out of negative core beliefs. We have to create a whole new networks to reprogram these wounds you've been carrying for a long time, which became a part of your identity and personality. So what we will have to do is we have to reach the subconscious mind where the emotions and imagery exist for every memory. That's why I like EMDR. I like it because it tends to sift through that emotional part, the body memory. It takes into consideration that as well, and it deals with the subconscious. And it helps to give that person the space of their body to heal and their brain to heal. So that's why I really like EMDR. Alrighty, so here's an example of what that looks like, right? So we find our core belief, our wounded core belief that I am not good enough, to I am loved or I'm good enough because I have friends and sisters who check on me, right, yesterday to make sure that I was okay. We want to attach those things with memory, right? I am good enough because I'm smart and I'm competent because I was able to get up here, right, and talk to all these people, right, about trauma. So I'm smart. So I'm associating with positive cognition with memory, right? And this is how we are going to reprogram our neural networks in the brain. Repetition causes the refiring and wiring of new neural networks, and this is the process that we can create new belief systems to help us shed old parts of our identity we have carried for a long time. So as we bring up the memories and fill in the blanks for our because, we are getting emotions and imagery and getting our conscious mind to speak to our subconscious mind through repetition and creating new neural networks, right? Okay, so of course, mindfulness is very good. It's like a buffer between your trigger and activate and response, helps too. But for some trauma survivors, the traditional practices of mindfulness is not a safe space for them. They don't want to be in their bodies. So you might want to kind of encourage your clients, maybe the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method to become, present kind of thing, observing the colors and the space around them and things of that nature. There are modern day traditional kind of mindfulness practices that you can definitely encourage your clients to do as opposed to sitting there and going in your body, because sometimes it doesn't feel very safe. All right. The last thing is tell your story. Tell your story in the company of people who accept and support you and who will not betray your confidence and trust. All right. I know it's time. Yay, I made it, 12:03. Woohoo! We don't have any time for questions, but if you had any questions or comments afterwards, I'm available. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.